Hey everyone! Thank you for joining us for our next live stream, Agent Orchestration, Directing Your AI Dream Team. My name is Anna. I'll be your producer for this session. I'm an event planner for Reactor, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenter to answer live. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Reactor channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speaker for today. Ari, thank you so much for joining.
Awesome. Thank you for having me again. So happy to be with everyone on the live stream today for Reactor. I'm really excited to present this topic. I think it kind of takes AI and coding and having a peer programmer to the next level of delegating and orchestrating a lot of the work that we do every day. Some of those that toil or maybe planning or things that we want to do. And again, my name's Ari LiVigni. I'm a senior learning advocate here at GitHub. So I'm going to do some brief slides. I like to at least introduce the topic a little bit, and then we'll get into the cool technical stuff, and I'll try to answer your questions as we go. Please try to keep your questions to the topic that we're talking about, just so like everyone's kind of benefiting from that knowledge on the topic of agent orchestration and that paradigm. So as most folks know, you can delegate now to agents to do certain tasks for us, especially in GitHub. It's very easy to do that. But maybe you want to really have that team and kind of have a plan for that team. You want to use different models. So as we're usually the bottleneck here as humans when we're doing this. Hello to everyone that's on the live stream. I see everyone chatting. But we're usually the bottleneck. So we have some local tasks, things maybe we're running in the background. We have cloud, but you're kind of acting as that orchestrator, and then you're manually querying, you're, getting those updates, and that's great. That works. But obviously it slows that process down. So what if you could actually describe the agents you want? Maybe you want certain models for certain types of agents of what you want to do. And that's really where we get into this. Like we have like a master agent that orchestrates other ones for specific types of tasks. And I think that's what gives us the ability to move even a little bit faster than we're probably used to. Obviously if you're, I'm going to be doing a lot of the things, by the way, today, actually pretty much everything, using the Copilot CLI. It's my now go-to of how I work, with my local standalone, what I'm querying and I'm trying to get updates on, as well as when I'm delegating or I'm running an autopilot. So with autopilot, if some of you've seen that setting, and I think I showed it in our last session when we did the agentic workflows, I'm going to probably not use that here, but I'll show you how to switch between them. And we have you have a plan mode, you have autopilot, and then you have just a regular mode where you're kind of just asking questions back and forth, or having the AI Copilot handle some of your requests for you. When you kind of do this fleet mode, you're able to really parallelize a lot of tasks. So you may have the orchestrator is going to talk to the planner for certain tasks, and it knows that that agent is for that. Same for the coder or the implementer. And then maybe handing that off to you have certain design things that you want in a certain way. And those things can be worked in parallel instead of just being single threaded. And that's kind of where fleet mode comes into play as well. I'm not going to really show fleet mode, but that's a way that you could actually launch all of your agents as well. So we have these different types of, drafting, implementation. We have plan mode, fleet to spawn, orchestration framework to break down for your agents to run in parallel. We could run the fleet here too of all our agents. I'm kind of want to just, we could take all the agents we have in our repository that I'll show, that we could then just launch with fleet and let it have at it, with obviously some prompting along with that. But I really want a breakdown of how each agent works and its purpose, and feeding it to the orchestrator and kind of almost controlling it a bit, but allowing those things to happen in parallel. And then obviously we get into the intelligence part of things, where you may want certain models for certain types of agents or tasks that you're doing. And that's also what I wanted to show here as well in this exercise that we'll walk through. Um, so when you're architecting your sub agents, something to keep in mind is like, what is the role? Um, Agents should always have some type of role of persona of what it kind of takes on, and then the task and jobs that it needs to do. And you can always iterate on them. I've done that in my agents, where like even creating this exercise, I found like I really want to add this one aspect to my coder agent that wasn't there before. And you can always iterate and add that as you go. I'll also show very briefly, and it's not in the exercise, but I'll show you, you could create an agent from scratch in the CLI if you wanted to, just show how that kind of, it's just a slash command to be able to do that off of agent. Then we have, the orchestrator is kind of like that PM and more of the logistics of handing off tasks. So you can kind of think of it as your virtual program manager for a project, or product manager. And it analyzes your request, delegates those tasks across the network, and it never implements anything. It's really just there for the orchestration. And then your planner is really doing the research on the code base, maybe consulting documentation. You can have references that agent needs to check. And then, really give you that blueprint of the step-by-step of how you're going to implement this project, or maybe update the project as you go, the software project. And then the coder is really writing code, maybe writing tests, updating, talking to MCP servers, for live documentation on different areas that it needs to know to implement. Some specs or APIs, for example, would be an example of where it would go out and talk to an MCP server to get that information. The GitHub has an MCP server, as many other, third parties have them as well. Pretty much there's an MCP server almost for everything out there. If you go look today, was not the case probably, 3 or 4, well, I guess I would say probably a year ago was not the case, but obviously the last 6 months that's sped up a lot. And then you have a designer of like, really like, what is the creative, the styling, the aesthetics, the front end of whatever you're building? Like, what is the user experience going to be for that person? So that's kind of like your designer. So this is kind of your team of agents that you want to use. And in my case, I decided I want to use some different models for different purposes of what they're the best at. I like Claude Sonnet for that orchestrator, that planner, or Opus as well is also the Claude models are really good for that type of part. I tend to use the GPT Codex models, or GPT-5. I'm going to use 5.5 actually here. I tend to use those models for coding, and it's really succinct and gets to the point, doesn't give a lot of extra information. I find the Claude models to be a little bit more robust. When it comes to designing or creating images or user experience, I use Gemini for that. So here I've kind of divided that up accordingly in the agents that I'm going to show you in the exercise, and you'll get to see what that looks like. So, the engine in motion, what it kind of will look like is, we'll call the planner, it'll do a plan phase, all of these things will execute in parallel, and then the orchestrator kind of verifies them at the end to review that everything's been done correctly. It also, I think using this mechanism helps you kind of save on your tokens, which is now obviously with usage-based billing for Copilot is a concern. So you want to concern as many tokens as possible. And that would help you also from a budget standpoint as well, that the multi-agent orchestration would work well there to address. And that's a work tree, and the file is being changed by more than one agent. Yeah, we can, we can talk about that too as we get into the exercise. I'm sure maybe that could be an issue for some projects, and maybe that's a tweaking of your agent to make sure that it's not stepping over the line or touching a work tree in a certain area. Like I would expect the designer to stay within the design part of the code base, while the the coder itself is working on the back end or maybe the data layer and doing things along those lines, that would probably be there. But that's a great question. And with that, I think we're going to get into, oh yeah, one more slide. So what's good about this is that with a agent orchestration, it describes the desired outcome. It lets the sub agent make its own implementation decisions. Whereas, you know, you never micromanage or dictate exactly which lines of code to change. So you're not in the nitty gritty of every line of code. And it's letting the agent kind of use its full cognitive capacity to architect the best solution for what you're trying to do. Obviously, the more context, as I always say, the more that you give it. Are the authors of the merge? Well, as you'll see, we don't, just because we have all these agents running doesn't mean we actually checked in code yet. So this could be done, and that's how you fix that, is before you actually merge any code. You could probably look at what code's there, and then all see those agents are going to look at that and see if there's any conflicts. I've actually had my agents correct those merge conflicts for me too. Or Copilot itself on the back end will go look as part of a review and also correct those for you. So I have not run into those types of issues. I use Opus 4.7 as the agent. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, this is the same thing I use as well. You know, I find just from a coding standpoint that the Codex ones are very good at that design. Like, I honestly, whenever I want to generate images, actually these slides, I'll be honest with you, I gave it a bunch of resources. I use Notebook LM a lot. And I generated these slides based on sources, my exercise, some notes that I've written over time to generate these slides. I did not write these from scratch. So that gives you a sense of what Gemini can do from a design perspective and create a PowerPoint presentation. So this is kind of, you know, and I may rename my exercise like Dream Team, because I kind of like that name, but I kept with a very, I guess, basic, you know, agent orchestration with the Copilot CLI, but I may change that name, and that doesn't mean the repo will change. I'll just change the name and it'll forward you to the right location anyway when I share the link with you. But the kind of the fleet and the plan, we orchestrate planner, architect, or coder, and the designer and Gemini all working together hand in hand. Are there any patterns to how to work with multi-agent systems? I only know about declarative approach where I request the final destination, or yeah, destination, what should happen, and I'm figured out how to reach there. Yeah, I'm not sure what that question. I'm not sure about that one, but uh, I would say this pattern. I'll also share a YouTube video. There's a colleague of mine. He's a developer advocate. He's amazing. I recommend subscribing to his channel. His name's Burke Holland. He's actually kind of my inspiration behind putting the skills exercise together that I have here. And he really goes into detail also on, you know, the orchestration, the planner, the designer, and the coder or implementer, however you want to call it. I guess if you're implementing design, you're also implementing, so coder makes more sense there. Yeah, and that's kind of the dream team. And that's the end of my slides. So I'm going to jump over to this exercise. Like I said, it's a very kind of boring name, but I'll paste this in the chat. While I'm at it, I'm also going to paste I'll have to actually just find the YouTube on that that Burke did. I think it's really awesome. Actually, I'll do that after. I don't want to. We'll have save that for the end. But actually, I highly recommend. And let me see if I can just go to his. Yeah, there we go. This, I think I have it here. So let me paste it in here for you guys. Let me go back to there we go. This should be, this is the YouTube that I based on what I'm doing here, my presentation, everything. We already have the exercise in there too. So with that, I'll get started. So there's a nice like preamble on like all our exercises. I kind of did this last session when we did the agentic workflows. This is our GitHub Skills, which you can find on GitHub Learn. I'll also link that too, because I think it's really cool to, if there's other skills or other skills exercises on different topics like GitHub Actions, Copilot, security, you name it. Like if you're just starting out with Git and GitHub, there's great skills for there. So let me highlight that one too. I think that's a great link to have. So what we normally do is, and obviously I've already done this, so but I'll show, like, we right click on that. I'm going to create this under my handle. Obviously, I already have one for the CLI there. And I'm going to put it under my handle. I already have a name there, so I could just say, a new name. You could see it's green, and I could create that repo. And once I'm done with that, I kind of wanted to jump ahead because I was anticipating the demo gods not working with me today, and I'm glad I did, because what I found was that our Codespaces were a little slow today, so I wanted to start from scratch. So normally you'd come into, once you were ready, you would come to the main page of the repo that you just cloned to your handle, and it would if you refresh, the action would run, and then you could go to the exercise, which basically it's an issue-based, self-paced exercise that you can run, like I showed last time when we did the agentic workflows. And then you can right-click on this to create your code space. I've already done that to jump ahead. There will be like a little disclaimer up there for for using the CLI. Like, so in this case too, I'm probably going to log into my GitHub account just because I'd like the connection of it. Unfortunately, I don't know what I have to figure out, why the copy and paste of the numbers here don't work very well, but that's okay. We can just do it manually, just so we have a nice functioning environment. You don't necessarily have to do that. It does work without that. I just prefer it because it's in my account, and then I have access to things if I need them. Oh, I screwed that up. I think it's ADEF. Is that right? Oh, DE4. My bad. I went too fast. Yes. 7A, 9F, ADE4. I think that's F9. I reverse these on you. And 9. Gotta hit it again, I guess. And we're good to go. All right. I don't know why it does that, but let's see. Yes, I will accept the risk. And now we're here. I load this code space already. I don't know the approximate credits to complete the demo. I'll have to do some more work on that, and I'll probably update maybe in a comment or something, or I'll actually, know what, I'll just add it to the exercise itself. I didn't really calculate how many. I can probably do that when we're done and just look at how many tokens we used overall. So I can do that and then get you that information. I did not add that to the exercise, but that's a great shout out. Good on that. Then the what I like to do when I run Copilot, and the one that started here already has that set up, I have the terminal come up. There is like a little allow box that comes up that you hit. Just hit allow. It's a task that runs as part of VS Code to set everything up. And then if you had not already started the Copilot CLI, which is already here, it's already installed in the code space for you. We already have the environment set up with what you need. And then we're going to ask, first, we're going to just do this general with the general agent that's default that you have when you use Copilot, to basically update a doc for us with agent information and kind of display it for us. So I'll just copy and paste that in here. I'll get my usual clipboard, allow. It's interesting. It puts it in dark text for that. I did not expect that. I usually work in dark mode, but for visual purposes, I have loaded obviously light mode here. Multi-repo development. Yeah, in this case, we're in one repo, but I'm sure with multi-repo, that probably makes it more complicated. Maybe that's another more of an advanced version of what we have here that I could probably add at some point. That's a good suggestion as well. So as you see, we looked at our agents file, which if we were to actually look at each one of our agents, we have an agents directory. We have our coder, our designer, our orchestrator, and our planner. If we look at the planner, it kind of just gives, the orchestrator, it gives us an idea. It tells us what model we're using, what tools we're allowed to use. That's interesting. And then it has an execution model, and it's all written in Markdown. All of these agents are. A planner's not doing any implementation. It's doing more search and web and to-dos and reading. It's not doing any execution. But if we were to go to the coder agent, it's doing edits. It's doing executions. It's also doing similar things that the planner agent's doing, but obviously with more changes to our code base or to, to edit files and execute commands and things like that. Same here for the designer is also doing edits and to do. So those are very similar as well. I don't know if the memory is crossed out here because I'm not logged into my system. I didn't see that before. So that's a note for myself to go back and check that out. I'm kind of interested in what that's doing. But also as part of this, we updated this nice document in our docs folder about our agent team, and it has a nice table. So if we actually were to go to docs, oops, I should have just done that. And we open and preview it because it's a nice, pretty version of everything. But again, the same things that we had in our, you can have the regular agent kind of just document what's here, and then you can have that live in your documentation. So maybe you have a peer come in here and they want to know what these different agents do. They have that as a nice reference doc, and we were able to do that as part of this exercise. Pretty basic, not anything too crazy. And then if I go back to yeah, we can just do, obviously you can always do your staging, and, if you work in VS Code, you're staging your commit message, your pushing of it to a branch and doing all that. I'm going to just use the AI to do that for me in this case, and have it basically put them there. Again, it did the black text. I wonder if it's stuck. Yeah, that's interesting. So doesn't change. I don't know what's going on there with light dark mode, but not that it affects us at all. I was just curious of why it's doing that. And then now that we've made those changes, we should see our exercise move along. And let me see here too, the question that was asked, I'm kind of curious myself too. Does that have, I think there's another, not session, it's duration, path, that's the session. Let's do help. I think it's not session. I'm forgetting the one to find out the details of the session. There it is. Usage. There it is. So you asked me about like how many let's see what we've used so far. So I think this is my total, not something that's just for this session. I wonder if we can, let's see, usage. I wish you could find out just for this session. You probably would have to clear out your cache and then kind of estimate what tokens you're using. But this gives you a sense of like what I wonder if you can do more here. Also, I mentioned too that we can do plan, autopilot, and things like that. You can do that with the shift tab. As you can see, like I just did shift tab on my keyboard. It switched to plan below. If I wanted autopilot mode, I could do shift tab again, or I can go back to just regular, like having that conversation. Obviously, you can still have Copilot or your agents go off and do tasks for you. Copying from brings in the styles with it. That's why it's black. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that tip. So it was said here that paste based on the profile you were copying. My profile does use dark, so that makes sense. Thank you for that. That's good to know. Awesome stuff. I'm learning from you guys. I appreciate that. So we have that all set. We basically added the document that has all the details about our different agents, what their roles are, their definitions, and so on and so forth. And now we're ready to go to the, we're making this project Pulse, dashboard for ourselves. So we're going to need some UI stuff. I do have this just to remind people if they're not in the CLI, what is what you are demoing the model orchestrating itself? We haven't gotten to the orchestration itself, but what it is orchestrating is basically the different agents to carry out different tasks for us. So the planning, the coding of the app or this dashboard that we're creating here, and then designing the front end of what that would look like from a visual standpoint. That's what we're showing. Have an option to steer, not just and queue messages. Does that mid-flight send message functionality still exist? And I can't find it, or it should still exist. We'll get into this and then I'll come back to that. I'm pretty sure there is a way that you can always escape too, and escape out of what you're doing and query. That would kind of stop with what you're doing as well. That's actually more how I use it today, but I know the mode that you're talking about. Let me see. Let's go. We can do a quick look through help. I mean, we have time for this. If we go back to, we have like everything about the agent environment. Oh yeah, I wanted to show that as well. Initializing Copilot instructions, agent, skills, MCPs and plugins. Those aren't familiar. I'm not covering that in here. We could always do another Reactor series. I'm actually building a plugin to create exercises with. And then agents and sub-agents, delegating and fleet and tasks and things like that. If you wanted to clear instructions, let's see. I mean, we could, let's actually ask, let's do that. So let's do that. This is a new feature. I've not seen this ask, which is great because I often want to do this and I don't want it like mixed in with what I'm already asking Copilot to do. So let's ask your exact question. Mid execution by Copilot. In the Copilot plan or ask or dry run operates in human prompt level nudges, stop. Oh, so you could do things like this too. Inline follow-up. I mean, these are typical ones. You may want to look through those and see if that's what you're looking for. I know within a PR or like when the agent is running in a sandbox, I was able to write a comment to re-steer it in that environment. I'm assuming the CLI would work the same way here too. So let's also make sure. So now we're going to actually use our agent. So if we do the agent / command, we have the default one we're in now, which we've been using to kind of write that documentation about our agents, and that's normal. But as you can see, because we have the agents listed here in our repository, these markdown files left side, as you can see, they're listed here in the CLI because it's going to leverage those. You could also have it expand to if I had other agents that were in my Copilot user settings or user space, those would also be listed here, but I'm in this code space, so they're not. I'm also don't have sync settings set on. That's why this one is highlighted here as well. But also, if we wanted to, you could learn more about custom agents. If we wanted to create a new agent, we could decide if we want to add it as a user or to this project only. And obviously, you can see the different directories, our home directory for our Copilot agents on this code space or in the repository itself, and so on and so forth. Let's say we just did it in this project. You could create it manually. You could create it with Copilot. I don't want to go too down this road. You could really follow this path yourself and find out how to create your own custom agent. I mean, at the end of the day, what I tell folks is if you know from a standard operating procedure of what you want a peer of yours or yourself to do of executing task, and you have that information, you have that context, that can be an agent that you then add to a markdown file. So, and then with a persona or a role added to it, as we saw when we looked at the coder, your job is you write code, like these are the things that you do. These are your principles. I honestly, I had Copilot generate these for me. But I did actually add some things to them as I went through them. Like I added this stuff about application for the launcher. So it's in our code space as well. So let's go back and we're going to select our agent. I'm going to select, as you can see, it says current. And that's a default one as well, which is the main agent. But I'm going to select, we're now on the Orchestrator custom agent that I have in my repository. I'm going to select this, which is I'm asking a planner to create an implementation plan for the Project Pulse dashboard. I want to save that in the docs, include these files that are going to be part of my application and a VS Code launch JSON in the file assignments. The orchestrator will know to go to the coder for those, to include the designer and the coder for those responsibilities as it's called out here. Include any of the dependencies, include parallel work decisions, include validation expectations at the end as well. This prompt could be even more robust. You could add even more context. This is just a sample, an example for this exercise that we're showing. So let me do that. There's a lot of lines, so it usually does this paste, so it's not cluttering up the screen. But as someone pointed out, my preference is dark theme, so that's why we have this little dark window of what I just copy and pasted once it's been, once I hit enter and Copilot start and the agent, the orchestrator agent starts looking over the context that I gave it. And see, it's telling us where it's going to put the plan. So we can always go to the, I also have an outline. I generated this outline actually from our Agent Skills. I do plan to do another Reactor series at some point where we'll talk about plugins, which is a combination of custom agents and agent skills that work hand in hand. I think it's really powerful that you can really do a lot and kind of extend your team to really have the ability to do certain tasks or certain skill sets that you would want. Like we have one for our exercise creation that does, yeah, dark, I'm with you, dark theme all the way. Thanks, Jessica. So, I think the agent skills hand in hand with custom agents is a pretty powerful combination. And then you can have that here in your CLI via plugins. I think I could spend a whole session just on that. So we'll definitely, I'll work with the great people at at Microsoft Reactor and see if we can get a session set up at some point to cover that topic in particular. I know I want to create a skill for it, skills exercise for it anyway. I know I'm overloading the word skills. GitHub Skills is our thing where we have all these exercises that I shared with you, different from Claude Agent Skills. So just to make sure everyone's aware of that, I know it's confusing enough, but in all fairness, GitHub Skills was around before Agent Skills were even a thought. So the other cool thing is, even though obviously tells you here the agent that it's working with, and it has Claude because that's the one that I came in with. I'm using that Opus 4.6 model, but because in the agent itself we specified the model we wanted, it's going to use that model specified in those different agents to carry out those tasks and do the cognitive cognitive decision making and implementing at that point. Obviously, the planner won't be doing any implementing, but it's doing more of the reading. Looks like it's creating our plan for us. Let's go to docs. Is our plan. Let me do it in preview mode, which always looks better. So it gives us some information about the plan, the dashboard, the JSON schema that we want, ordered implementation steps, really goes into heavy detail on what we want to implement, and what the coder is doing and the design of it. And, really kind of, we could probably spend a full, just on the planner produced here, a full hour on that, and digging even deeper into one of these. But we came back here. It sequentially, the orchestrator operated, but in parallel, the coder started working and the designer started working. The orchestrator had an integration check and then polish fixes. I'm sure too, in your agent declarations, you can specify if you want something to be maybe done sequentially or wait for something else, much like you do in like actions or any kind of like flows where you need something to complete before another thing. You could probably add that to your agent markdown to define that, like maybe waiting for the coder to be done with some back end before the designer even looks at making the front end. Maybe sometimes there's those handoffs, maybe to the point that someone's saying like, if there's conflicts with what one's doing versus another. So just to keep that in mind. And then, so we're good there. If we go back to our exercise, we really did do all of these steps here. We asked the planner to make that guide for us. And then we'll just also ask to stage our docs, commit the file, and push the commit. I think I even did this here, and this also worked here. Yeah. Sorry, I had done this once before too, and just making sure everything kind of looks like it should, and it does. It's great. So we'll wait for that to be done. We can just wait here on our exercise that should come up. Again, with all our GitHub Skills exercises, they are self-paced. They're in an issue ops. What's awesome about them is we have these actions running in the background that do certain checks. So making sure we have that file created and it has certain items in that file, certain key phrases. And we have a bunch of reusable workflows in our exercise toolkit that Alec on our team wrote, that does a lot of this stuff for us. And they're great to reuse. If you wanted to create your own exercise that's not GitHub related, you could do that. And we kind of call it learning GitHub within GitHub because we're actually using the platform to teach these skills and have it very interactive and hands-on learning. So we found all of the checks are good. We're golden. We checked for the different roles in our planning document, and we have everything there. And now we're really ready to go to our next step. Sorry, wrong. We're on step 3. So we finished step 2, which is we wanted to make sure that our Project Pulse document exists. It has information and different role assignments, launch configurations in there. Check for the app file assignments, the Project Pulse planning details, and check for the dependencies, ordering, and validation are all in that document. And now we're ready to build the actual dashboard that we've just kind of planned and started to put together, and what the roles of these different agents will be. So we already are in the Copilot CLI, so I don't need to do that. We are on the Orchestrator agent, and we can, like I said, verify that by looking down here. If you weren't sure, you could always go back and hit agent again, and it will show you what the current one that you're on. And then, like, if you wanted to deselect, you know, obviously you could go to the default one, but we're going to stay on the Orchestrator. And okay, nothing else in the questions. I'll keep going. So now we're going to take this plan. We're going to delegate visual and accessibility decisions to the designer, delegate the implementation to the coder, and start to really lay out what this project is. We're also going to set up what I want to show here. There's no run and debug config, which is normally a .vs code /launch.json file. We don't have that even created, but I added that to my coder agent so that we could have that, as part of creating this application. And that may be something that you want to do. Maybe you even want to add more hooks into VS Code, and you can have your agents do that as well. This was actually when I create our agents and adding onto our agent skills for the plugin that I'm going to create. This is the type of stuff that I'm going to create for our GitHub Skills exercise creator. And that's, I'll have something very similar to this, just with a different topic. So I'm going to copy that. A lot of context here, as you can tell. 40 lines of stuff. Goodness. By the end, we should have something running so it opens up. We may even have multiple, but let's see what it does. Any question? Are there any office hours? Is there a Discord Slack group for discussions? You can go to our Learn Discussions board. I can find that for you. And then I'll find that in a minute. When it comes to Discord, we don't have one now for GitHub Skills, but obviously there's definitely tons of community discussions that you could get into and ask questions on. But that might be a good idea. Maybe we want to create a Discord channel that we can discuss this on. I'll try to find that out. And while it's doing that, let me see if I can find that discussion board for you. Let's see. GitHub Learn Community Discussion. Well, that's doing its thing there. This looks like we could put it here. Yeah, it has a lot of link to our things. Let me see. Yeah, if you have, I'll paste this in the chat too. I think this is our main discussion board. We talked about having one for GitHub Skills. Maybe we'll do that. But this is the one we currently have. All GitHub CLI tools flag too. I'm assuming that, is that on the, let me see. That is a good question. I mean, honestly, those questions, like I do, I normally just ask them to Copilot to, not to give the work to something else. But if you have any questions about the CLI and what the CLI does, that's probably your best bet, is to ask those right to the CLI if you're not sure what it does. I'm assuming it enables all the GitHub CLI commands would be my guess. So like you don't have to ask permissions for them, but that allow all tools that I put in at the top does that and then more than that. And it also, as you can see, it enabled all of the MCP tools as well. Yeah, that enables all the MCP tools. Did I say all? Yeah, I think the one that I used was enable all GitHub MCP tools. Um, allow all relaxes permission prompts for tools, paths, and URLs. Enable all GitHub MCP tools. Makes the GitHub MCP tool set available in the session. There's no GitHub CLI tool, so that's why I didn't recognize that one that I could find. We do not have a badge or certification associated with this session. No, there is no. No, this is just a walking through skills and agent orchestration. But maybe by the end of the month, there will be opportunity to get certifications and stuff. I'm not going to, it could be coming up later this month. Just be on the lookout for it. Yeah, thank you. Are there session of the sub agents now also visible in the agents? Are the sessions of the yes. Let's go here. Oh wait, session. Files, plan, rename. Let's do info. I don't know if that's what you're asking about the session of. Not sure if that's what you're looking for or some other type of session about the different agents. If you wanted to see like what sessions we're currently in, we're just in this one right now. Obviously, this / resume allows you to jump at different sessions that you're doing, whether they're local or remote. Remote meaning like you're doing cloud agents and you're running it, to a cloud agent and then it's coming back and you can have that in here and resume that session. You can also do remote sessions. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where if I wanted to continue this and I typed remote, you could go to the web console to do that. Let me see. That's a new setting to show. Use /remote on the control of the session from the GitHub or mobile device. So you could do that too if you wanted to. So now let's see, we got a bunch of changes made on all the files. So we added this launch.json now. We have our index, we have a project data, some sample data in there, and a style sheet. And now we should also see, you meant this one? Yeah, this is, yeah, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, just a session info or something specific, session files, no files in workspace. Session rename, session checkpoints. You could do checkpoints. I don't think you can find, I'm not sure what you mean by the agents though, of like what the agents have done. But maybe you could clarify that question for me and I can help answer it. I'm just not understanding. I apologize. But we can run our app. And let me pull this over so I can see the language. And it's just a basic directory listing of all our files and everything. Not really that interesting. Let's see. Yeah. I was expecting a little bit more there instead of just a list of the directory. And that's okay. Let me, I think that might come in our next step if I'm not mistaken. So we did all these changes. We created this launcher. We can even iterate with the planner if we want just a different type of experience. But I'll check this in. I think we're going to get some more stuff in the next step that will show us a better visual. Let me read your question again too while that does that. Are the sessions on the sub-agents now also visible in the agent session extension in visual? Oh, I see the visual agent extension. That's a good question. Let's see. I don't know if I have that installed. Or do you mean the visual agent? I don't know. I'm not sure if this what extension that is. Visual of Claude Code, Agent Designer, Agent Lens, Agent Pulse. If you have a specific name that you can provide, I can see if we can visualize the agents for us. I've not used that extension unless it's the AI Foundry one or one of those other extensions. Sorry. Let's see. All right. We pass that. All right. Validate and hand off the dashboard. I can look at that. I'm going to iterate on this too. But let's do this step first. We're still in the orchestrator agent. I'm going to rerun the dashboard just so it has the context. And we made it public. And we can go to view. Where's my guy? Where's problems, output, debug console, teams? Sure, let's just do that. Oh, there, it's right there. Perfect. And I don't need this open right now. The final handoff document is completed. So we did a final handoff report of that. And we can, again, too, I may iterate on this too to make us a nice, I really don't like the way that looks of just a directory structure. I was expecting more of a visual. So we will iterate while we're here. We still have 7 minutes to do that. So we can iterate live while we're here. Again, the exercise I shared with you is available. Probably just like the agentic workflows, if you notice, I've made updates to that. We do iterate on our skills exercises to make them better, more robust, more instructions and information, as well as making it a little bit more useful of like a real app that we're creating. So a little directory image doesn't really impress us. We want to make something more visual. That's why we asked the designer to take control of that. So maybe we'll add that to the style sheets as well. Maybe we didn't run the app correctly, but I thought we did. We'll get there. It staged that commit. So it looks like we passed that. Step 4. We passed, and we should probably finish. So there's a nice review here too. I'll probably make some updates to this to have a better visual at the end. But while we're here, if we look back at what we asked it last, let's take another look at this from step 3, and I may make some modifications. Box shadow. I might actually just not going to the right address is probably what's going on. 5,500. Let's ask that question. I was expecting, oh, that's the back end, I think. So let's go back to our ports. Take a look at that. Yeah, terminal. No. New terminal window, new terminal. Where's my view? Terminal that way. There we go. Yeah, I think there's a problem here with the ports, so that's okay. We can look at that. I'll come back to my and we'll leave this pulled down a bit. I'll just ask, we can stay on the orchestrator, but I'll go back to the default agent. Now we're back on default. What is the URL for the visual dashboard? I only see a directory. And that might be just updates I need to make in the exercise there. Yeah, that's just directory structure. So let's go back to our orchestrator. Actually, I'm going to go to our designer directly. And I'm going to say, or should I go, you know what, let's go back to the orchestrator. I like that better. I'm going to say, have the designer show a pretty front end dashboard. Moment is just a bland directory. If I could spell, that would help. Directory showing files. Yeah, I think it's a launch problem. There we go. So that might just be a change that I need to make in the exercise itself. So sorry about that, but I had just put this together and I didn't look at the overall UI ending. But as you can see, we were able to do this pretty quickly. Anyway, we have a couple minutes left. I'm hoping that this will fix the UI and then we can show what's there once it's built. Don't have a paid GitHub Copilot paid subscription, but Kiro, can I follow the example from Kiro? I'm not familiar with Kiro. I don't know. You could use a free account possibly, and you can use that for Copilot. I'm not familiar with Kiro, so I don't know what that is, unfortunately. All right, working for background agents. Okay, it's getting there. We're almost there. We got a minute left. Let's see, is there any other questions I can answer before we're done here? I think the cool thing though is you can obviously go into this repository for our skills and look through the agents and model that after something that you may want as well. Let's see if we refresh. run pulse dashboard. Anything nicer? There we go. And there we go. Boom. So sorry about that. We made it just in time at 1 o'clock. Look at that. 1 o'clock my time, East Coast. But as you can see here, I created a quick dashboard. This was the part was probably what was serving out on that. And I'll just make that update and that change to the exercise. So you would get a nice pretty thing. And this would be the idea of like, you could have these different kind of cards. Obviously, this is kind of a dummy project that I created based on the JSON file that's generated as the backend. But this shows you what is possible. You have an agent team. Within an hour, we put this together. Obviously, with kind of showing different things and answering questions. But the idea is you can really build a dream team of agents to do everything you need to do for your coding purposes. Thank you so much for attending. I hope this was helpful for all of you. Sorry for any of the kinks that went along the way. I'm glad we preloaded the Codespaces because we would have been in trouble there for sure. But I'll try to follow up with any other things if you have any questions, please ask them in the community discussion that I pasted. Enjoy our GitHub Skills. And thank you guys so much for attending. I really appreciate your time and keep learning. Keep using GitHub Copilot and take advantage of agents that you can give your tasks. And you all have a great morning, evening, night, wherever you are. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you all for joining, and thanks again to our speakers. This session is part of a series. To register for future shows and watch past episodes on demand, you can follow the link on the screen or in the chat. We're always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find that link on the screen or in the chat. And we'll see you at the next one.